And let me introduce you to the moderator for this session. That is going to be Mr. Sajid Iqbal, Vice President, HR, GE Transportation, a Wabtec company. Let me give a small brief about them. Mr. Sajid specializes in talent strategy and fostering a high-performance culture. With over 20 years of HR experience across India and the US, he has led talent management, recruitment, and leadership development initiatives. His expertise includes co-creating HR strategies, organizational design, and capability building at senior levels. Key projects including driving talent strategy for GE Healthcare's 2000 Technology Center, leading employee benefits design during GE Transportation, merger with Wabtec, and providing HR leadership for a $2 billion project, including workforce planning and training for 2 greenfield factories in India. With this, let me introduce all our panelists for this session that are going to be Mr. Vivek Slaria, CEO, OriginBluy. Then we have with us Ms. Prerna S., Vice President, Human Resource, Birla Fertility and IVF. Then we have with us Ms. Harpreet Sandhu, CHRO, India Mortgage Guarantee Corporations. Then we have with us Ms. Lipika Verma, Vice President, HR, Schneider Electric. Then we have with us Ms. Rishu Garg, Chief People Officer, DeHaat. Then, last but not least, we have with us Ms. Sumita C. Majumdar, Head HR, International Travel House Limited. With this, let us invite the moderator who is going to beautifully curate and moderate this session along with all our wonderful panelists. Can we have the entire panel on the dais with a huge round of applause, everyone? And the topic is going to be driving cultural transformation, the CHRO's role in shaping and measuring impact on business outcomes. Everybody, please, let's welcome them with a bit of energy. I hope everybody is refueled with a small, quick tea and coffee break. And I am asking you to always encourage them because they are here with us. And they have taken their time from their hectic schedule. They are here with us to share their knowledge, their experiences, their insights. And I believe that every day you can learn something from someone. So with this, over to the panel.
Thank you. So, a very warm good afternoon to everyone. My name is Sajid, and with me are some of the people from different companies. And the best part is it's a pretty diverse set of experiences that each of the panel members bring. What I would do is this term, cultural transformation, is something that is important for us to just spend a couple of minutes to really know what it actually means. And what I would do is, as part of introduction, have each of the panel members talk about the name, the company they work for, and then their own definition of when were they involved in this journey. With that, what will help is we will get to really know about whether they had experience recently, whether it was experience at the early stage of the career, and then we would actually have a set of few questions which I would be asking, and then we'll keep about 10 minutes or so for questions from all of you, that thereby making sure that there's a dialogue with the audience. So I'll actually go right to you, Sumita, because we were just discussing this. In your own words, what comes to your mind as cultural transformation and your own experience, and then we would actually have Rishu and rest of the team to talk about it. This is like a quick introduction. Over to you.
Okay, I'll make it quick. Thank you, everyone. And thanks to Gainskills, of course, to having us over here and sharing our views. I'm Sumita Majumdar. I head the HR for International Travel House, which is an associate company of ITC Hotels. Quick response to what is cultural transformation as far as I understand. Cultural transformation is basically what I understand is as is to be. Currently where we are and where do we want to go. this is what I feel. And as far as if I have to talk about when did I get into the scope of cultural transformation or understanding culture or moving from as is to be, was very frankly, I was not exposed to it at the initial stages of my career. I was exposed to this at the middle, when I was at the middle level, wherein that was the time when I got involved in the various processes that my organization was going into in terms of moving into, because we were looking at, we were at a growth path in terms of where we wanted to go and what are the things that we want to do in the future. That is how I got exposed to the culture transformation in the organization. Thanks.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Rishu Garg. I lead the HR function at DeHaat. DeHaat is trying to build a full stack model in the agri value chain. So we are providing all solutions from farm to plate. I think a very powerful question, Sajid, culture transformation. So I think, in my free time, I love to read what is the origin of words. And I feel that, words have a very deep meaning. So the word culture comes from the word cultivate. It started, the use of culture in organization, culture parlance has started very recently in this century. Agriculture and cultivation has been around for centuries. And whether it is a small pot or it is, it is a garden patch or a field, it is something that you work on every day. If you leave it as is, वहाँ पे कुछ तो grow हो जाएगा, ठीक है? But if you tend to it and you care care for it with love, then of course you will be able to grow what you want to grow. And transformation for me, again, it comes from the word metamorphosis. So as she said, it is from as is to be. I feel in organization, a culture is never stagnant. It's always changing, it's always transforming. And as catalysts in that piece, I think our journey is to ensure whatever the organization needs at that point in time, are we able to catalyze a culture that works for that organization and that business strategy?
Okay, a very diverse perspective, and I know we have a very diverse panelist as well. So for me, just to quickly introduce myself, I'm Lipika, Verma, VP HR for Schneider Electric, which is part of international operations. For me, if I look at cultural transformation, I think it's all around how do you bring the organization to the next level. So in the global context where every organization is wanting to pave its path and put its footprint on the global market, it puts a lot of pressure on people, and we need to create a culture which really helps in making those transformational changes and making sure that the organization moves to the next level. And in that sense, creating that change or creating that transformation in line with the business strategy, which helps you to bring the organization at the next level, is what I truly feel is the cultural transformation to my mind. For me personally, I got a chance to do a lot of work on this transformation pretty early in my career when I had around 7-8 years of experience, and we wanted to cultivate a change in the company that I was working for, and we wanted to make it the best brand in India and globally as well. So that's where we led this entire cultural transformation, and we were called out as the most trusted brand internationally. So that's my journey. Over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Prerna. I head HR for Birla Fertility and IVF, which is part of the CK Birla group. So we are currently the third largest fertility chain in India with about 50 plus centers, and we are providing services in the entire gamut of reproductive health. My initial, I think, career, I was involved with the CK Birla group companies, and I was leading large scale initiatives on culture transformation, which included leadership development and cascading values across different entities, which were very different because the businesses are very diverse. And last 4 years, when I started working with Birla Fertility and IVF, we were at the very initial stage. So even the company name was not finalized when I kind of joined and took over this role. So the journey has really been on how do you cultivate a culture, a desired culture in the organization, and then kind of aligning all of the HR strategy, the processes, practices to that core pillar. So it's been very exciting to, I think, just do that journey on culture creation. We currently have about 900 employees across India. And it's also more exciting because our workforce is quite segregated in different parts of the country. So really, one is you're doing it at a central level, but how do you cascade the culture to the last mile in the organization has also been very exciting, and I'll be happy to share some of my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Harpreet Sandhu. I lead HR for an organization called India Mortgage Guarantee Corporation. When we talk about cultural transformation, to me, culture is really what is it that the organization stands for, right? What is really the goal of the organization? Because there's a purpose that we have to come together for. And early in my career, I was fortunate to work with two really large organizations, which in my mind really define what culture really stands for in organizations. So starting my career with G, where the prime focus was innovation. The tagline was innovation at work, right? And I have a few fellow colleagues who come from there. So everything in the organization was actually driven to that. Whether the kind of training programs we had, whether what is it that whether the way we did business, So everything was there, and every employee in the organization would be asked to think and automatically think like that. From there, coming to American Express, which is really an organization which is really about customer centricity. Right? Today also, if somebody talks about customer centricity, I think American Express, the way somebody will answer your call, if you ask for a card, that's really what the definition of customer centricity is. And really that started, the respect for the customer started from respect for the employee. And I think that's really how it kind of culminated. And from there, those two organizations, when I moved to my current organization, where I had the fortune of setting up, being a part of the leadership team and really defining what the organization and what the organization culture was, I think that's really what I took along to say, what is really going to define us, right? We are the first mortgage guarantee company in India. We are providing a risk mitigant product for lenders, and that's what we want to focus on, right? So how innovation, openness, ability to fail and still, come up and do things. I think those are a few things that my current organization, we define for ourselves and the people in the organization.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vivek Slaria. I am CEO of OriginBluy, and clearly I'm adding to the diversity agenda over here. If you look at an organization culture, right, the way I like to define it, so Vivek is an individual and he's doing his work. Sajid is another individual and he does his work, right? When Vivek and Sajid get together, what do they talk about, right? And that essentially becomes the culture of an organization. When they come together, do they come together and crib about the work, the manager, the environment, so on and so forth? Do they talk about openings in other places? Or do they talk about how can they, newer innovation that they are trying to do, some experiments that they are trying to do, something different that is working on in the business? So this difference in conversation is something that I call culture. Culture transformation in my vocabulary would therefore be when two people come together around their water cooler, around lunch tables, so on and so forth, outside work, do they switch from, or are they cribbing, or are they encouraging, right? Are they lacking energy, or are they full of energy for the business, right? Do they talk, there is nothing here, or do they talk possibilities of what can happen over here? And this shift in vocabulary of people as they interact with each other would become a culture transformation in the deepest sense.
Great. Thanks, Vivek. And I'll share something, my own experience on when it hit me hard was, so I started off my career in 1997, maybe about 17, 18 years in the job. Culture was a word, and I worked with very few companies. And then one fine day, GE actually bought Alstom's power business. And this was a big, I would say, acquisition. It was almost like in India, there were about 8,000 employees. Globally, the number of employee base was only about 50,000. At that point of time, one realization I had was that you could be in the same business, G Power and Alstom, but the way of doing business, example from you about customer centricity versus innovation, actually we were pretty different. And one of the things that the company took a decision at a global level was that they actually came out with a new role, which was about the person's was Sharon, and her role was about listening for the next 1 year, and she was basically the culture officer of this merged business. And this is a pretty big business, $25 billion global revenue. So the reason I'm bringing up this is any one of you in this room, and it will happen in your careers, that you would actually be working in one company and eventually either there'll be a merger, or it could be that your company is bought over or you buy a company. You would be surprised that right from how induction happens to how promotion happens to how compensation strategy, things are different. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's different because companies start with a history which is different and their focus areas are different. So it's a pretty significant, large topic that we are dealing with. And I think that was the interest for a lot of us to be here. And not just to share, but to learn from each other. With that introduction and this little context, what we have done is we have got few questions, and we actually had a meeting prior to this panel discussion, and we'll keep it structured. That way, it's one topic and maybe a couple of divergent views will be there. And I'll try to make sure that we will, maybe in 15 minutes or so, open it up for Q&A with all of you. So the first one is for Vivek and Lipika. And this question is around, if you were a CHRO of your own organization, and you have to align the cultural transformation with the business strategy part. So your role is very clear. That's what would be the approach that you have either experienced or you would suggest for a company going for a large scale cultural transformation journey?
Thank you so much, Sajid. And let me share this strategy with all of you, and this is something that really works very well with some large organizations, right? And I typically call it the big rocks strategy. Have you heard of this term, big rocks? A few of you might have, few of you wouldn't have. Excellent. So it's called the big rocks strategy. And in a very brief way, if I were to talk to you about it, it is the executive leadership has to have an articulated strategy which is extremely simple for people to understand and find their role in it. Okay? It cannot be a very complicated document. It cannot be a very difficult Word document. It has to be simple, articulated strategy that everybody can relate to. This is phase one, right? Step one. Step two of the entire big rock strategy would be for your individual contributors, the people who actually grow the organization, right? They need to have their everyday KRAs and KPIs aligned directly to these big rocks. So much so the keywords need to come out from the big rocks and be reflected in their everyday strategy. So a typical organization will have some revenue goals, it will have some operational excellence reduction goals, it will have some innovation goals, etc. And how do these very large at an executive leadership level terms drill down to that individual contributor is an important job. So part two, make sure individual contributors, KRAs, KPIs directly tie to those big rocks. And the third part of this big rocks strategy is the middle management, or who I call strategy translators, right? The middle management is the part of the organization that helps connect the executive leadership strategy to what an individual contributor does every day. Do they do a good job about this translation? Are they able to help a person who's beating the street, who goes and talks to your retail channel outlets, or who's going and talking to perhaps a lot of other individual buyers, and help him see the larger temple that he is building versus the bricks that he or she is laying? So we have found immense benefit in implementing what we call the big rock strategy. It works extremely well for organizations in a simplified articulation, an understanding by individual contributors of their role, and second, the strategy translators to be able to connect the dots for the two.
Okay, thanks, Vivek. I think you covered it very well. I wanted to give a little bit of a different perspective in terms of demystifying it for the HR audience who's here. In terms of how do we really create that cultural transformation, and how do we translate a business strategy into the people strategy, and therefore the culture that we want to build in the organization. So we all know that there is a business strategy, there are certain ambitions, there are certain mission, vision, and of course there are strategic goals. Now, built on that business strategy, we as CHROs actually try and build a people strategy and really understand, what are those elements which are super important for an organization. And that is where the importance of the cultural elements come in. Now, I'll give you an example where, let's say, and many of you would have read this book on Microsoft, let's say, Satya Nadella, when he came over as the CEO for Microsoft, he came to a culture where it was, we know it all culture, to something where he tried changing the culture to a learning culture, and therefore tried building a lot of collaboration. For him, elements on collaboration, elements on learning was super important, and that was a huge cultural change that he kind of drove, and that is where the understanding of what is the culture which is needed for organization to reach to a different level, and how does the HR team really want to do things in order to get there, is something that he brought about. Giving a little bit of an example of Schneider Electric, where we are an energy management organization, and then of course there is a lot of weightage given to innovation, to technical staff, to solution selling. Something which is part of our culture is around innovation and mastery. And therefore, as an HR leader, what I need to do is really make sure that innovation and mastery are two elements which gets hard-coded in so many ways. Vivek touched upon the KPIs, and exactly like that, how do we build these elements as part of the culture? We need to understand what is the culture which is existing, where are the changes we need to make, and if, let's say, innovation is something which needs to be brought about in the organization, how do we build it and hard code it as part of our values? How do we, kind of link it with the performance management system? How do we put it as part of the leadership expectations in terms of the behaviors that leaders showcase? And coming to mastery, how do we try and enhance a learning culture in the organization when it comes to skilling, reskilling, so on and so forth? So the point, just to summarize, is that depending on the strategy, business strategy, we need to understand what are those elements which will really help move the needle in the right direction from an organizational perspective. How do we bring the organization to the next level? And therefore, what are those core elements which may be very different for different companies? Which are those core elements, and how do we have that interplay of those core elements in terms of different aspects that we drive as part of the people agenda and people strategy? So I'll stop there and pass it back to you, Sajid.
Great, thanks. Great thoughts, Vivek, in terms of the overall approach part. And Lipika, thanks for sharing examples from Microsoft and your own organization, Schneider, which also has gone through many acquisitions and is one of the leaders in the industry right now. So look, for all of you as delegates here, what the way we are looking at approaching the overall topic is, if you think about a house, the roof is basically what both Vivek and Lipika talked about, is how do you come out with the people strategy, aligning with the business strategy. Once the roof is there, the important part is the pillars. And the pillars are the cultural traits that any organization, whether it's going to a merger or example of a new setup, where you can build a culture completely on your own. And I think one of the, we are fortunate to have each one of you here on the panel bringing different aspects. And Prerna, your example of, it's a brand new organization that has been set up by CK Birla Group. If you can talk about the cultural traits, how did you go about identifying? Was it with the help of a consultant? Was it done internally? And for any one of us in the room, if we have to go through a situation where, like your organization gone through, of starting something from scratch, how do you come out with those 3 or 4 key traits, which some companies call it values, some company can call it traits? Your insights, please.
Sure, thanks. So for us, it was a very organic process, and we actually had a couple of people, including the founders of the business, come together and really think about the reason for getting into this space, what we wanted to be known for, what was going to differentiate us, because it's already a saturated market with many other players being there. And also, I think what is true to us at a group level and as an organization, you know, because it's a legacy organization. The group has been there for about 160, 180 years. So, and our company carries the brand. It's called Birla Fertility and IVF. So when you're carrying the Birla brand, it puts a lot of responsibility in terms of how you want to show up to your customers. So it was a very organic process, and we have 5 values, which we call the caregiver values. It's a completely people-centric business. We are there to serve our patients who come to us. And especially with infertility, the kind of patients who come to us have often undergone a long turmoil, of trying to conceive and have a child. So they have, going through anxiety, depression, self-doubt, relationships sometimes are strained. So there's a lot of empathy that is needed to be shown to those patients walking into our door across all levels of people who may interact with them, right from the contact center who may book appointments to the person doing registration at the billing desk, to the nurse who's attending to them, the consultant who is, sharing sometimes a bad news with the patient. So I think we kind of mapped the entire patient journey. We looked at our own intrinsic drivers, values, our mission to create certain pillars for us. There are 5 of them. I'll talk about, I think the main one, which I think is a competency relevant for everyone, I would say is customer centricity and a customer centric mindset, because that is really at the heart of all organizations and should be at the heart of all organizations. The only way one can achieve that is really being closer to the ground, having a very good pulse of what our customers want. Many times those needs are not even stated, but being able to understand the unstated needs of our customers. We have a very interesting element. We call it the patient first value. We don't call it customer centric, but the patient first value. And we have a test called the family test. So during all our inductions, hiring, trainings, we re-emphasize the patient test, which basically is that you have to treat the patient as if it was your own family member. So would you advise the same treatment to that individual? Would you demonstrate the same level of care if it was your mother, sister, or family member sitting across to you on that table? And if the answer is, you're unsure about it, then it's probably not the right thing to do. So that is a test that we use, which works very well for us. The other thing I would say in a competency aspect is really about, I would say, agility and also adaptability. I don't mean agility as, being able to move fast or move quickly. I think that's a very, that's a commonly common way in which we express agility. But it's really being about to sense the environment, what's happening from a political perspective, social perspective, government perspective, and being able to respond to those changes in a very thoughtful, deliberate manner, and empowering people, especially at the middle level, to be able to take decisions. That is what gives true, I would say, agility in an organization. And when we, for example, even in the fertility field, there have been so many new laws which have come about, and a lot of players who were not able to adapt to those regulations have not sort of gone very far. But being able to, I think, understand the need behind it, address it. So that's a very small example, but I think that's very critical. And like I mentioned earlier, the last point I would say is really on, I think, for your employees, providing an environment which is inclusive, which gives everyone a safe space to share their thoughts, to feel heard and valued is very important. And especially because in our setup, we are not able to meet our employees on a regular basis because they are all spread out. Each center of ours would have about 8, 10 to 12 people. So creating many forums, both top down, bottom up, where we can actually understand their pain points, what they are going through, and how do we kind of, both anonymous forums as well, because many times people don't feel comfortable sharing a problem directly. So we have done a lot of work on communication channels, both top down, bottom up, like I said, to really get a pulse of what's happening.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And as you talk about customer centricity, one industry that comes to my mind, and I'll have Harpreet share her thoughts, is the airline industry. One of the things that happens in an airline industry is that whether it is the two top players, if things don't go well, it's in the newspaper the following day, right? And we read it almost every week. Harpreet, with your experience in American Express, which also is an organization that deals with external customers, the important part is what we're talking about is, we talk about the strategy, we talked about traits. The other piece which is important is about the richness of feedback, and how do you use that once the culture is being set? Are we in the right direction? If you can throw some lights on that, it would be great.
Yeah, so I think, all of us will agree that, one of the richest forms of enhancing a business is feedback, right? And when you say feedback, it's not just about a one-way trait, it's really about openness from all sides of it, right? I think there's a lot of work organizations have done in the space of feedback, right? Because it's obviously over the years, leadership has realized that that's really how it is to take organizations forward, right? So you've got, the employee pulse survey, you've got many things that kind of formally happen in the organization, and I think which are great sources for any organization to say, okay, this is an action plan, this is what I've heard, this is an action plan that I'm going to put. But I personally believe from some of my experiences that feedback is, a lot of feedback has to also come from the informal channels, right? So, Vivek talked about, coffee conversations, what happens on the cooler conversations, I mean, just sharing an example that in my current organization, there was something that happened, there was a conversation that folks were happening on a lunch table, which wasn't really very pleasant, right? So how do you kind of go back and address some of those things, yeah? Similarly, the ability of the employee to really come up and share, whether it is a good news or a bad news, right? What is it that you give, and I like to share this example from American Express. I was a part of the travel business leading HR at a point of time where, a 1,500 member team, there's expectation that business is going to be hived off or sold off, right? But how these things happen, they happen over a period of time, you don't know how it is going, etc. And I think as a leadership team, what went well for that team was the openness that the leadership showed, right? There were enough town halls that were done to say, look, this is all that I know, right? Take questions and be open to say, I don't know everything that's happening, right? So I think those are certain aspects that are there about feedback, or I would say more openness as far as you build culture in the organization. So yeah, those are few points that I like to leave you with.
Great. So look, as we dive further into the topic, one of the most important element is the middle management. And middle management could also be the people managers, the people who have teams that they work for. So it will be great, Prerna, if from your side, if you can talk about, maybe Sumita, from your side, what are some of the approaches that you have seen work? And if you can share with examples, it will be great.
At the middle management level. Yeah, most important, middle managers are actually when you look at the pyramid, when the pyramid you have the lower level, I mean the pyramid goes like this, the middle managers, I always see them as the gatekeepers, because it comes from top down, the information comes over here, and they are the ones who also percolate it down. So the gatekeepers are the ones who are very important in the organization, and and as far as I have seen, and when I was at that level, I really first-hand experienced that when the leader or the managers are discussing, or there is an initiative which needs to be rolled out, so it's through the middle manager. So understanding the role of the middle manager and how the middle manager is taken along when the change needs to happen in the organization. Because when we look at this level of people, because they are the numbers are also substantial, because as the pyramid goes, the pyramid becomes tapered up, which means the number of people at the higher level are lesser. So when we look at this category of people, the most important thing I feel is you need to take them along. You need to make sure that their expectations are understood, because they are the ones who are going to also answer the junior management level. Because once they are clear in terms of what transformation or what the organization wants to do, where the organization wants to go is being articulated to them, then they will be able to percolate, because they have the most number of people working under them. A middle manager would be having typically of at least 5 to 10 people, and that's how it goes. So once these people are taken into confidence, the next phase is, I would not say very easy, but it can and avoid some amount of resistance, because resistance is one thing one needs to be very much aware of. In an organization, if the organization is looking for a particular thing, for example, let's talk about a new rollout of a performance management system. Now, for rolling out a new performance management system, if a mail goes from HR saying that with effect from 1st of April, there is going to be a new performance management system. Now, how would people react? It's going to be a totally, because nobody would know what to do. Unless we take everybody along and explain to them how the process needs to be done, what are the things that we need to focus upon, the change or the process would not actually fulfill. This is what I feel.
Thanks, Sumita. This is great. And as you talked about the elements in terms of, I would say, things to focus on, it will be great, Rishu, from your side, if you can talk about pitfalls, right? What are some of the pitfalls that you have experienced while implementing a culture transformation? Specifically, you come from, or you have worked with a startup as well. And are there few things that one can learn from it? And if you can share with us, it will be great.
Yeah, I think some of the pitfalls is one of the most common things that I see. And you spoke about how companies get acquired or companies acquire companies, is not being clear on what is your business strategy for this year and for the next 3 years. Lot of time, lot of times, and I'm sure everyone goes through this every day. Values are just posters on wall, and there is a completely different set of expectations, that the strategy has from the leadership team and from the managers and from the employees. So I think it is, for me, strategy is about having full clarity on what you don't want to be, right? You spoke about the airline industry, and we have two major players in India today. So I think Air India has a strategy and Indigo has a strategy. While both of them may have similar values, yet the customers experience it, the employees experience it, and there's no point in being somebody you are not. So one of the pitfalls is just blindly copying something, and I think that never works. The second thing that I often see, and DeHaat has grown uh, uh, both organically and inorganically, and we've acquired a lot of companies on the way, and there is a lot of mindfulness on what is the value system the core team comes with, and what is the value system the new team is coming from. And the reason you've acquired somebody, or the reason you are working, partnering with somebody, is because they are good and they bring something to the table. So no point in, taking an organization and trying to just, ensure everything happens your way. So there has to be a lot of respect on, the paradoxes. Yeah, I know there will be, people who are very humble in the organization, and there'll be people who are very heroic, right? And both of them matter at different points of time. So how do you balance? I feel that is something that is very important. I think the timing, the, aligning your personal value system with the values that organization expects is also something I feel, if done well, works well. But a lot of times I see that if there are 10 different leaders, there would be 10 different cultures in the organization. And I think that's a big pitfall for companies who are trying to get somewhere.
Great, thanks. And we actually are almost coming to close in terms of structured questions and answers. And as we open up for one or two questions, I will share with you my one thing that how I see culture. If most of us, and I'll share with you the first school that I went to for my kids. You go to the school, and this experience you will either you have experienced or will experience based on what life stage you are in. You go and meet the admission counselor. That person really represents the school. And post that, maybe there are some schools which have interviews for parents, some are with interviews for kids. Within 10 minutes, you get a sense that whether I would like to have my son or daughter study, or should I look for another place. That, I would say, if I have to define that, that's the culture of the school or the education place, that you are taking a decision to invest time more than money for someone that is our loved one. So with that, I would just see if there are any questions. If there are none, we would actually do a quick closure comments, and then we'll complete the panel discussion. Okay, thank you. Yeah, please.
About the middle management, and irrespective of any number of innovative transformations to drive in cultural changes, the mental models, the KPIs, end of the day a middle manager or a leader does face that dichotomy in terms of achieving revenue, driving versus ensuring the behavioral or
The
behavioral or the cultural aspects are being actually adopted down the line. So as CHROs or CEOs, how do you monitor it at that stage to ensure at least like 50% of it gets covered or is taken care of, or somebody is, probably recognized for following the cultural sets rather than maybe achieving all the KPIs that were there. So how do you do that?
Can I pick this up? I think it's a very relevant question, and thank you for asking. The job of a middle manager is, I personally feel, the toughest in any organization. Would you agree? It is difficult being a middle manager, you know. Nobody prepares you for it. Nobody readies you for that one. Like when you become an engineer or you get hired to be an engineer, you are trained to be an engineer. But who trains you to be a good, effective middle manager? And second, as you rightly pointed out, this guy's at the middle, or this girl is at the middle, right? So you're getting squeezed from the top on performance-related topics, and you are getting squeezed from the bottom for their own need for personal time, personal space. So I want to be a pet parent, I want the flexibility, I'm a plant parent, so I have to leave at 5, no matter what happens to the other meetings, etc., etc. And the middle guy is facing the leadership, is facing the team as well, and it's a difficult job. What we have found work very effectively, and this person has to work both with the senior leadership as well as with the individual contributors, right, so to speak of. What we have found work effectively with a lot of organizations we work with, and these are large organizations, think L&T, Tatas, etc. What we have found work very effectively is skilling these people with an ability to hold the right conversations, right? How can I hold a difficult conversation and at the same time unite the people to a common end objective or outcome? Right? This is something that we find missing, especially in the Indian cultural context, where given the nature of our upbringing, we are hesitant to hold difficult conversations. We are hesitant to be direct in our feedback, so we sugarcoat things. I have seen this work remarkably well with a lot of people whom we work with in allowing them to unite to a common goal, hold the difficult conversations, hold the discomfort with whomsoever they need to speak with. It could be the executive leadership, it could be their people downwards, without an emotional drain. That one trick really solves a lot of these issues. Thank you.
And if I can just add on one little piece to what Vivek covered beautifully is the communication. I think we all as HR leaders have to communicate extremely effectively with the middle management, because as you rightly pointed out, they are under a lot of pressure. They get pushed from the leaders, they get a lot of interactions with their own team members. So it's a lot of communication, and that's something that we can do in a very structured way, and we can enable effective communication to this team in order to support them, guide them, coach them all along.
Great, I'll need 10 seconds and then I'll hand it over to you. So, so thanks Vivek and Lipika. And Lipika, your point of communication. So I've seen it with Wipro G, where I worked for a few years. We actually, not we, but my boss that time, the CHRO, developed a platform called Adda. And purposefully the name was Adda to have the informal communication. The company was coming out with products for the Indian market, manufactured in India for Southeast Asian India market, and that was a pretty big hit. And if I look back to my time in Wipro G and look back what is my memory was this platform which was engaging, led by the CEO and direct staff, but it's a company which has many offices in India, and they used to post information about what's happening in their city, town, and it was a very, very effective tool to spread this journey from point A to point B, which was about new product introduction. So with that, we have our, over to you. I've taken the 30 seconds.
That's okay, that's okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Please, let's give a huge round of applause to the entire panel. As I mentioned before, they have beautifully curated this session. Thank you to our moderator for beautifully moderating the session, and thank you to all our panel members for being here with us. And they have managed to be here with us expect that everybody has given their time here from their busy schedule, and I believe that every information that they are going to share with us today is going to be fruitful in the end. Thank you to the entire panel. Please be with us for another minute, because we would like to felicitate that you are here with us, and we would like to give a small token of appreciation. And to give away the memento, may I invite Ms. Chandni Ravani, Director of Learning and Organizational Development at Euphoria Consulting. Ma'am, can we have you on the dais to give a small token of appreciation? And with this, let me invite all our panelists. Please come forward. We have with us Mr. Vivek Slaria, CEO, OriginBluy.